Let me tell you about a mistake I have watched thousands of people make, and I mean thousands of people who worked hard their entire lives, saved carefully, did everything they were supposed to do, and then the moment they crossed 60 years old, they made one decision, one panicked, irrational emotionally driven decision that cost them the last chapter of their financial life. They rushed to pay off every single dollar of debt they owed as fast as humanly possible, and they did it before doing something far more important, far more mathematically decisive, far more likely to determine whether they spend their final decades with dignity and options or with anxiety and regret. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking paying off debt is responsible. Paying off debt is what smart, disciplined people do. And you are not wrong. Debt is dangerous. I have said that my whole life, but here is what most people miss. Here is what the schools never taught you. Here is the truth that most financial advisors will not tell you because it is complicated and nuance does not sell simple products. Not all debt is the enemy, and not all debt deserves to be paid off first. The sequence matters. The order in which you do things matters enormously. And if you get the sequence wrong after 60, you may never have enough time to correct the mistake. Because after 60, time is the one resource you cannot compound your way back. To pay close attention, what I am about to tell you is not complicated, but it is brutally hard to execute because it goes against every instinct, every social program, every deeply wired emotional response you have about money and safety and fear. Let us begin. I call this the 5 decisions that separate the last chapter from the lost chapter 5. Decisions that people over 60 must make in the right order, or they risk turning the most potentially powerful decade of their financial life into a decade of slow financial erosion. These ideas are simple to understand. I can explain each one in a few minutes, but simple to understand does not mean easy to do. In fact, the reason most people fail at this is not because they are unintelligent, it is because they are afraid, and fear is a terrible financial advisor. Shep. Decision 1. The debt audit. Not all debt is the same. Animal, here's the first thing you must do before you pay off a single dollar of debt. After 60, you must stop treating all debt as one thing because it is not one thing. Debt is not a monolith. Debt is a spectrum, and the position your debt sits on that spectrum determines whether paying it off first is mathematically brilliant or mathematically destructive. Let me give you the framework I have used my entire life. I call it the cost of capital test. It is very simple. What is the interest rate on your debt? Write that number down. Now, what is the realistic long-term return you could earn if you deployed that same money into sound investments instead? If your debt is costing you more than your investments would earn, pay the debt first always. But if your debt is costing you less than your investments would earn, you have to think very carefully before you rush to eliminate it. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine you are 62 years old, you have a mortgage with 14 years remaining. The interest rate on that mortgage is 3.5%. You also have $80,000 sitting in a savings account earning less than 1%. Your instinct says pay down the mortgage, wipe it out, own your home. Free and clear sleep at night. I understand that instinct. It is deeply human. There is something primal about owning the ground beneath your feet. But here is the brutal mathematics. If instead of throwing that $80,000 at a 3.5% debt, you invested it in a diversified index of quality American businesses, the historical average return over any 30-year period has been somewhere between 7 and 10%, even being conservative and using 6%, you would have that $80,000 grow to over $230,000 over 20 years. That is the difference between a comfortable retirement and a retirement where you are calculating whether you can afford to turn the heat up. Now, compare that to eliminating a 3.5% debt. The math is not close. You gain the psychological comfort of a paid-off home, but you sacrificed $150,000 of future purchasing power to get it. Comfort is not worthless. Peace of mind is real. But you must know what you are trading, and you must make that trade consciously, not emotionally. Here is the test. I want you to run tonight. Write down every debt you carry: credit cards, car loans, mortgage, any personal loans. Next to each one, write the interest rate, then put them in order from highest to lowest. Anything above 7% deserves your urgent attention before almost anything else. Anything below 5% deserves careful consideration before you rush to eliminate it. That is your assignment for decision 1. Do the audit, know your numbers, because you cannot make a rational decision about something you have not clearly defined. Decision 2. The emergency fort. Build this before you pay off anything. Now, here is a decision that most people over 60 skip entirely, and it is the one that ruins them when something goes wrong. Before you aggressively pay off debt, before you invest heavily, before you do anything else, you must build what I call your emergency fort. Not an emergency fund, a fort. Because a fund sounds soft and optional, and what I am describing is your non-negotiable line of defense. Let me tell you why this matters more after 60 than at any other point in your life. When you are 30 and something goes wrong, your car breaks down your roof, leaks your health, throws a surprise at you. You have 30 years of future earning power to recover with. You can work more hours, take on extra projects, ask for a raise. You have time after 60. You still have earning power, but the runway is shorter, and more importantly, the consequences of financial disruption are more severe. Medical costs go up, the body begins to require more maintenance. Children may have needs, grandchildren may have needs, grandchildren may need support, and the emotional weight of financial stress at 65 is not the same as at 35. Research has shown that financial stress, genuine scarcity level, financial stress reduces effective cognitive functions significantly. It consumes mental bandwidth. It keeps your brain in a state of constant low-grade threat response, and decisions made from that psychological state are almost always worse than decisions made from a foundation of stability. So before you pay off the mortgage, before you invest the lump sum, you must build your emergency fort to a minimum of 12 months of essential living expenses. Not 6 months, 12 months. I know you have heard 6 months your whole life. But after 60, the variables that can disrupt your income and your expenses multiply 12 months of essential expenses in a liquid account. Not invested, not in the market, not in a certificate of deposit that locks your money up for 18 months, liquid accessible within a week, without penalty. This is your bulletproof vest. This is what keeps a bad quarter in the market from becoming a catastrophic personal financial decision because you were forced to sell assets at the wrong time to cover an emergency. Here is the difference between two people I am going to call Robert and David. Robert is 63, has $90,000 saved. He has a mortgage with a balance of $60,000. He decides to pay off the mortgage completely. He feels incredible. The house is his, no debt, but he has $30,000 left in savings. 8 months later, his furnace fails. His car needs major repair, and he has a health issue that costs him $4,000 out of pocket. Robert has to pull money from his retirement accounts early. He pays taxes on the withdrawal. He pays a potential penalty depending on his account type. And most critically, he interrupts the compounding growth of that money at exactly the wrong moment. David is 63. Same situation, but David builds his emergency fort. First 12 months of expenses, $48,000. Then he puts the remaining $42,000 into a diversified investment account. He still has his mortgage, but when the same emergencies hit, he does not touch his investments. He draws from his fort. His investments keep growing. 2 years later, David's investments have grown and his emergency fort has been partially rebuilt. David is not richer because he was smarter. David is richer because he did things in the right order. Your assignment for decision 2 is this: calculate your monthly essential expenses, not your lifestyle expenses. Essential expenses, only housing, utilities, food, basic transportation, and insurance. Multiply that number by 12. That is your target. If you do not have that amount liquid today, that is the first financial priority in your life right now. Before debt payoff, before extra investing, build the fort. Decision 3. The compound window, your most important and most ignored asset after 60. I want to tell you something about time and money that most people discover too late, and I say too late not to be cruel, but because it is true, and the truth matters more than comfort. The most powerful force in the financial universe is compound growth. I have said this my whole life. I have said it so many times that people assume they understand it. They nod their heads. They say, yes, compound interest. I know about that, but knowing about compound interest and truly feeling it in your bones, truly understanding what it means for a person who is 62 years old right now, those are two very different things. Let me show you what I mean. If you are 62 and you have 25 years ahead of you, which is a reasonable actuarial expectation for someone in average health today, and you invest $50,000 at a 7% average annual return, after 25 years, that $50,000 becomes approximately $270,000. You did not earn that money by working. You did not earn it by being clever or aggressive or taking wild risks. You earned it by doing nothing, by planting a seed and leaving it alone. Now, here is the critical point. Every year you delay that investment, every year you use that capital to pay off a low-interest debt. Instead, you are not just missing 1 year of return, you are missing all the compounding that year's return would have produced in every subsequent year. Mathematicians call this opportunity cost. I call it the compound window. And the window is still open for you at 62. It is still open at 65. But it gets narrower every year, and paying off a 3% mortgage with money that could be earning 7% is like having a machine in your basement that turns $1 into $5.50 and choosing to use that dollar to pay down a very cheap loan. Instead, you are shutting down the machine to reduce the cost. That was already cheap. Now, I am not saying ignore debt. I am not saying debt does not matter. I am saying you must weigh the cost of the debt against the cost of missing the compound window, because both are costs. One is visible and the other is invisible, and we are wired as human beings to focus almost entirely on the visible cost. High-interest debt, consumer debt cards charging you 18 or 22%. That debt must be eliminated before you do almost anything else, because no investment reliably beats 18% guaranteed. When Charlie Munger and I talk about what makes people fail financially, it almost always comes back to one thing: they do not think in terms of opportunity costs. They see paying off a debt as a pure gain. They do not see the parallel universe where that same dollar was compounding at 7% for 25 years. Your assignment for decision 3 is a calculation. Take whatever lump sum you were considering using to pay down low-interest debt. Go find a compound interest calculator. There are free ones everywhere. Plug in that number, use a 7% return. Use 20 years as your time horizon. Look at the number it produces. Then ask yourself, is eliminating this specific debt worth more to me than that number? Sometimes the answer will be yes, because not all debt is low interest and not all peace of mind has a price. But you must do the calculation. First, you must make this decision with your eyes open. As Decision 4. The sequence trap. What you must fund before you pay off anything here is a decision that can cost a 60-year-old person $60,000 or $70,000 in free money, and most people never even know they left it on the table. If your employer offers any form of matching contribution to a retirement account and you are not contributing at minimum enough to capture that full match, you are walking past free money. Every single paycheck, the employer match is the single highest guaranteed return available to any working person in America. If your employer matches 50 cents for every dollar you contribute up to 6% of your salary, that is a guaranteed 50% return on that portion of your money before any market gains, before any dividends, before any growth. 50% return guaranteed the moment the contribution hits the account. There is no investment on earth that offers a guaranteed 50% return. Not bonds, not real estate, not blue chip stocks, not anything. And yet millions of people over 60 are prioritizing extra mortgage payments or credit card debt that they could retire systematically over capturing this free match. I understand why it feels abstract. The match feels like a future thing, a someday thing. The mortgage is a present thing, a real thing, a visible thing. But the mathematics do not care about your feelings. The mathematics simply accumulate. Let me give you the numbers. If you are 62 and you work until 67.5 more years and you capture an employer match of just $4,000 per year, that is $20,000 in free money you collected, invested at a 7% return, starting from the midpoint of those contributions. By the time you are 75, that $20,000 alone has grown to approximately $44,000 without doing a single additional thing. $44,000 that you left on the table because you felt better making extra mortgage payments. The sequence matters. Employer match first, always before extra debt payments, before extra investing, before anything. Your assignment for decision 4, anything. Your assignment for decision 4 is a single phone call or log in, contact your HR department, or log into your benefits portal today. Find out exactly what your employer matches and exactly what you are currently contributing. If you are not capturing the full match, change your contribution today, not next month, today. This is as close to a free lunch as the financial world ever offers, and you must take it. Edition 5. The psychological fortress, the battle you must win before the financial one. I have saved this for last because it is the most important decision. And I say that knowing full well I just told you several things that are mathematically critical. But here's the truth. You can understand everything I have said in this video. You can write it all down. You can nod your head and think, yes, that makes sense, and then go home and do none of it. Because the enemy is not ignorance. The enemy is your own nervous system, your own ancient emotional wiring, the part of your brain that was designed for a world of immediate threats and immediate rewards, not for a world where the right decision requires you to tolerate present discomfort in exchange for a future benefit you cannot see or feel. Yet let me give you a brutal warning. Most people over 60 who make poor financial decisions are not making them because they are unintelligent. They are making them because they are afraid, and fear is a terrible operating system for financial decision making. There is a specific kind of fear that attacks people after 60. I call it the scarcity acceleration. It works like this: as we age, the future begins to feel shorter, not because it necessarily is shorter, but because the psychological relationship to time changes. A 65-year-old and a 35-year-old can read the exact same financial plan. The 35-year-old thinks this makes sense. I will do this, the 65-year-old thinks. But what if something goes wrong? What if I need that money sooner? What if I need that money sooner? What if the market crashes? What if I get sick? The what ifs multiply, and each what if is a reason to keep money close, to avoid risk, to pay down debt regardless of interest rate, to hoard liquidity even at the cost of compounding. This fear is understandable. It is human, but you must not let it drive your decisions unchecked, because the irony is this: the decisions fear leads you toward often create the exact outcome you're afraid of. The person who keeps all their money in cash because they are afraid of market volatility watches inflation quietly destroy their purchasing power over a decade and ends up with less security, not more. The person who pays off a 3% mortgage before investing because they cannot stand the psychological weight of debt sacrifices the compounding growth that would have funded their health care in their 80s and ends up more financially vulnerable, not less. The fear is real, but the fear is not always pointing you in the right direction. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to separate two questions that most people treat as one question. The first question is, what does the math say I should do? The second question is, what do I need emotionally to function and sleep at night? Both questions are valid. Both deserve honest answers, but you must answer them separately and then negotiate between them if the math says invest rather than pay off the mortgage. But you know yourself well enough to know that carrying the mortgage will paralyze you with anxiety and lead to worse decisions in other areas of your life. That is information that is real data about your own psychology. And sometimes the right answer is not the maximum mathematical answer. Sometimes the right answer is the answer you will actually execute without self-sabotaging, but you must know which choice you are making, and you must know what it cost you. A 63-year-old man, I will not use his real name, let us call him George, had $200,000 saved. He had a mortgage balance of $80,000. At 4%, he had no high-interest debt. He had 6 months of emergency savings. His financial advisor told him the math clearly supported investing the $200,000 rather than paying off the 4% mortgage. George understood the math. He agreed with it intellectually, but he lay awake at night. The mortgage felt like a stone on his chest, so George made a different deal with himself. He paid off $80,000 of the mortgage, eliminating it completely, and invested the remaining $120,000. Was it the maximum mathematical outcome? No, but George stopped lying awake at night. He started making cleaner decisions in other areas. He started spending less on emotional purchases because the baseline anxiety was gone, and the $120,000 compounded. It is not always about the optimal equation. It is about the optimal equation. It is about the optimal equation you will actually execute and maintain. Your assignment for decision 5 is the most uncomfortable one I am going to give you. I want you to write down the financial decisions you have been avoiding, not the ones you have been executing. Perfectly the ones you have been putting off, the ones that create anxiety when you think about them. Emergency Ford. You have not built the employer match. You have not captured the debt audit. You have not done the compound calculator. You have not opened. Write them down, and next to each one, write the real reason you have been avoiding it. Not the excuse, the real reason. Fear of the number uncertainty about what to do next. Shame about where you are, not enough trust in the system. Write the real reason, because until you can name the obstacle, you cannot move it. Tip. The final reckoning. I want to step back from the numbers for a moment. I want to talk to you about something that matters more than any of the mathematics I have just walked you through. I have watched people optimize their finances for their entire lives. I have watched brilliant people run perfect spreadsheets, make the right allocation decisions, capture every available tax advantage, compound. their wealth with extraordinary discipline, and I have also watched some of those same people arrive at 75 or 80 with large accounts and small lives with financial statements that look like masterpieces and daily existences that feel hollow. Here is what I know after all these decades. Money is a tool for freedom, that is all it is. It is not a scoreboard. It is not evidence of your worth as a human being. It is not a substitute for the things that actually constitute a rich life. A rich life is not a large portfolio. A rich life is waking up and wanting to be exactly where you are. Is having people around you who genuinely care whether you live or die, not because of what you own or what you will leave them, but because of who you are to them. It is going to sleep without dread. It is having the freedom to say no to things that diminish you and yes to things that lift you. Money can buy some of that freedom eliminating the right debts at the right time, buy some of that freedom building the emergency fort, buy some of that freedom capturing the compound window, buy some of that freedom. But here's the dark truth. I have seen men reach the end of their lives in rooms full of expensive furniture and empty of genuine love. I have seen men who could write checks for any amount they desired lying in hospital beds, wondering why the people in the room felt like strangers. And I have seen men with modest accounts and simple lives surrounded by people who genuinely adored them, who left this world with a kind of completeness that no net worth statement can describe. The decisions I have talked about today are important. They will determine whether the last chapter of your financial life is one of options or one of constraint. But they are not the most important decisions you will ever make. The most important decisions you will ever make are the ones about how you treat the people who matter to you, the integrity you choose to operate with when no one is watching, the degree to which you allow yourself to be genuinely known by the people who love you. Those decisions compound too, and the return on that compounding is the only return that matters when you can no longer remember the password to your brokerage account. The closing. So let me give you the 5 decisions one final time. Decision 1 is the debt audit. Know your numbers, categorize your debt by interest rate, and stop treating all debt as one animal. Decision 2 is the emergency fort, 12 months of essential living expenses, liquid and untouchable, built before everything else. Decision 3 is the compound window, calculate the true cost of missing compound growth before you rush to eliminate low-interest debt. Decision 4 is the sequence trap. Capture your full employer match before you make any extra payments anywhere else. It is the highest guaranteed return available to you. Decision 5 is the psychological fortress. Separate the mathematical answer from the emotional answer, negotiate between them honestly, and make the decision you will actually execute, not just the decision that looks best on a spreadsheet. Now, here is what I need from you. I need you to not let this be a video you watched on a Tuesday afternoon and forgot by Thursday, because information without action is useless. Wisdom without execution is vanity. The things I have described today are not complicated. They do not require a financial genius. They do not require a large income. They require a large income. They require a decision and a sequence, and the discipline to follow the sequence, even when your fear tells you to do something else. You are not too old to get this right. You are not too far behind to change the trajectory. But you are also not so far ahead that you can afford to waste another year. Another day getting the sequence wrong. The door is open. It has always been open now. Walk through it. That's all. Thanks for watching.